Hi, my name is Matthew Santoro. I'm Canadian, I'm bald, and I'm a YouTuber. Okay, that's all you really need to know. Bye! No, just kidding. But for real, you guys have been watching my videos and following my journey for years now, and you probably think you know me pretty well. But the truth is, there's a lot more to the story that you don't know. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything that you've ever wanted to know about me, where I came from, how I got to where I'm at now, and everything in between. If you've ever wanted to know more about me, this is the full story, from start to, well, now. So let's start from the beginning. I was born in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada on July 16th, 1985 in a hospital to my two loving parents, Mike and Kathy Santoro. I was an only child, so from an early age, I learned how to entertain myself and be creative. I think you get why that becomes important later in my life. Shortly after being born, my parents decided to move to a small city called Welland. It's a relatively small city of about 52,000 people, and truthfully, there isn't really much to do there. I mean, we have a mall and a bridge. That's about it. Basically, it's a quiet town where people move to retire. Not exactly an exciting thing for a kid. When we moved there, my parents bought me my very first pet, my dog Barney. He was the cutest little fluffy dog I'd ever seen, and I loved him very much. He was the only boy of the litter, and that made him extra special to me. We would snuggle and play together all the time, and he'd even sleep with me every night as I grew up. My dad named him Barney after Barney Rubble from the Flintstones. Still not exactly sure why, but hey, why not? We gave him so much love that he lived for a really long time, around 16 years, but eventually he got too old and we decided to put him down. Luckily, my uncle is a veterinarian, so he was surrounded by a loving family when he passed. But I'm getting ahead a bit. As a kid, I attended St. Kevin's Elementary School. It was a Catholic school, but not one of those hardcore uniform-wearing ones where the boys aren't allowed to talk to girls. I was always the class clown, always doing things to make people laugh. But despite that, I was never very popular in school. Now, I wouldn't say I was a loser, more like I just didn't feel like I fit in with any cliques. I always felt like I just never belonged. I always felt different, like I didn't understand why the other kids acted the way that they did. I always tried really hard to fit in, but it never worked. Eventually, I figured out the harder you try to make people like you, the less they will. I was always thankful that I was never really bullied. I mean, I was picked on, but never beat up or anything like that. I had some pretty great teachers growing up, as well as a few close friends, and I was pretty happy, except for when I turned 8 and my parents divorced. I definitely didn't take that well. I honestly don't have a lot of memories from that time, but I do remember that it made me a really sad kid, as well as confused. I felt sad for a long time after that, and I couldn't explain a lot of the emotions that I felt. But despite that, my parents did all that they could to make it as easy on me as possible. The biggest thing I always give my parents credit for is that they never talked crap about each other around me, ever. Despite their differences, they only ever spoke highly of each other. That's something that I'm still thankful for to this day because I know that not every kid has that privilege. Next up was high school. I attended Notre Dame College School, which I always thought was a weird name considering that it isn't a college, but anyway. High school was similar to grade school for me, except that I now had a whole bunch of hormones rushing through my body all at once. Yeah, that didn't make things awkward at all. Out of all of my classes, I loved improv class the most because I got to be on stage making people laugh. In fact, I would do this thing called the mother lobster, where I'd snap my claws together and throw myself against the chalkboard. Yeah, I was weird. It was in my first year there that I met and started dating my first ever girlfriend. Her name was Holly, she was nice. That same year, I found my first job. It was at a grocery store called Zare's in the hot deli department where I fried chicken, and believe it or not, I ended up staying there for 10 years and even fully paid my way through university. That's pretty much the summary of my high school days, but there were two important lessons that I learned during my time there that are still true today that I want to impart upon you. The first is to never envy anyone else's life, ever. No matter how great someone's life looks on the surface, I promise you, everyone has demons that they struggle with, and no one is as perfect as they seem. I learned that one the saddest way possible when one of the most popular kids in my school, who everyone looked up to, took his own life one weekend without any warning. It turns out he had been terribly depressed and nobody knew about it. The other important lesson is to never hesitate. If you want something, act today because you might not get your shot tomorrow. This was another hard lesson that I learned. I had a huge crush on this girl named Jen, and I waited days to gather the courage to ask her to prom. And when I finally did, she told me that she was just asked earlier that same day by another guy. And what makes it worse is that she also said that she would have gone with me. That one stung. It was in high school that I chose to go into accounting. I know, boring. The truth is, I only went into it because one of my teachers, Mr. Graffy, told me that I could make a lot of money. So I set my sights on Brock University, switched all of my classes to accounting, and dove in. Next up was university, and it was a really good time in my life. It was during this time that I started to become more serious about fitness and weightlifting, and I got into pretty good shape. In between my studies, my friends and I would go out 2 or even 3 times a week. I still don't know how I went out that much and managed to pull off a 75 average. During my second year there, I ran into my high school crush, Marcy. We started hanging out and then started dating. Fast forward, and after 5.5 years, I graduated with a Master of Accountancy degree and moved in with Marcy. That's also when I got my first job at an accounting firm. Things were going really well. Just after I graduated, near the end of 2009, is when I first discovered YouTube, specifically the YouTubers who inspired me to begin making my own videos. My biggest influence at the time was Ray William Johnson. I was in love with the concept of making videos and putting them online for everyone to see. It was just so exciting and new. After moving to St. Catharines with Marcy, I bought a camera and taught myself how to edit and shoot video. Fun fact, I almost didn't even post my very first video. It was only because of Marcy's encouragement that I gained the strength to do it. From there, I started making videos twice a week, and despite the fact that I was only getting about 100 views a video, I still loved it. For a couple of years, I would work long hours crunching numbers, then come home and write scripts, shoot videos, edit them, and post on Saturdays. Then, one day, everything changed. I got laid off. Now, you'd think I would have been devastated, but oddly, I wasn't. In fact, I was happy. For the first time in years, I felt like I was free to do anything I wanted. I decided to vlog the experience, calling it "I Lost My Job Today." In fact, that video is still on YouTube today. Feel free to look it up if you want to see Chubby Matt. It was at that moment that I learned another hard but important life lesson. To paraphrase the great Jim Carrey, you can fail at what you don't want to do, so you might as well take a chance on what you love. So I did. I decided to pursue this YouTube thing full time, despite having no idea how I would make it work and feeling completely lost. For an entire year, I took making videos really seriously. I was determined to make it, so I did everything I could to put myself in a position to do so, including going to VidCon and networking with bigger YouTubers. It was during this time that I met and became good friends with Scott Kinmartin, who introduced me to Household Hacker and Rob Dyke. Needless to say, we all became good friends and would even do a weekly live stream together called Let Your Google Hangout. In fact, we became such good friends that we decided to take a cross-America trip together. Luckily, it was in a free car that Scott had won through the Ford Fiesta movement, which was great because we were all broke and it's a tough economy. But in all seriousness, little did I know that this would end up being the trip that would change my life forever. Other than quitting accounting, this was the second big risk I had ever taken in my whole life. Up until that point, I was always a very small-town conservative guy who was really just happy being safe in his little bubble. But all of that changed. Over the course of 2 weeks, we traveled from east to west coast together. It was a ton of fun, and I still have many great memories and hilarious stories from that trip. While we were on the road, I decided to take another big risk, to switch from comedy skits to exclusively top 10 videos. Up until that point, I had always done list videos and skit videos separately, but one day I thought, hey, what would happen if I combined the facts with the humor? And boom! Soon I started getting 5,000 subscribers a day, then 10,000, and then 25,000 subscribers a day. In 3 months, I went from 15,000 subscribers to millions. Keep in mind, it took me 4 years of making videos to get those 15,000, and I got millions within 3 months. I had never felt a high like that in my life. I even passed many of the YouTubers who inspired me to begin in the first place. My patience and hard work had finally paid off. But another big change was coming that I couldn't predict. The sudden fame was shifting my life in another direction, and Marcy and I started to grow apart. Eventually, we realized that things just weren't right anymore, and after being together for 5 years, we decided to split ways. Luckily, to this day, we are still good friends, and I'm forever grateful for everything that she did for me while we were together. At this point in my life, I had finally gotten everything I worked for, and it was exciting. However, despite that, the truth is, I didn't handle my sudden fame very well. I lost a sense of who I was, and I didn't even know who I was supposed to be. From July to December 2014, I became very depressed and isolated. In fact, there were some weeks when I was so depressed I couldn't even bring myself to make a video. And unfortunately, the next 2 years were equally as confusing and difficult for me. If I could summarize that entire time into one word, it would be roller coaster. There's a lot that happened during that time, but I'll summarize it for you like this. I met a girl that I thought loved me and that I thought was my dream girl, but ended up just using me to launch her YouTube career and put me through a lot of pain. But I also was on over 40 plane rides, visited places I'd never seen before, and even moved to Toronto. Then I got into some unnecessary YouTube drama with some friends that really sucked. But then I traveled to South Africa to be in the final Resident Evil movie. Then I got into some more YouTube drama, this time with a gnome and a cartoon. But I know, it sounds weird. It was. But then I released a book with a full tour, won a Streamy Award for Breakout Creator of the Year, and even went to the White House. So yeah, like I said, roller coaster. That brings us to the end of 2016. I still found myself lost and unhappy, so I decided that I needed a change of scenery. I took another huge risk and moved to Los Angeles. It's taken me 6 months, but I finally just now adjusted to living here, and to be honest, it's nice. But the truth is, I often miss Toronto a lot and all of the amazing friends that I made there. I miss my family a lot too, but the good news is that I travel back there every couple months, so it's not so bad. So, that's pretty much it. I guess I'm still finding my way, and I'm still figuring out life as I go. But through it all, I learned one more important thing. I've realized that life itself is not something that you figure out. Maybe it's not about the destination, but about the journey instead. Maybe it's all about making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and being a better person tomorrow than you were yesterday. It's about enriching the lives of those around you. It's about taking risks as often as possible and doing things that scare you, because growth lies just outside of your comfort zone. I don't know what the future holds for me, but that's okay, because throughout all the crazy ups and downs that may be to come, I know that my life will be about creating what I love, continuing to try to make the world a better place for the people I care about, and of course, sharing it with you.